All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we get into finding angle measures using SOH CAH TOA. Well, now we're going to do a different combination here where we are given two sides but no angles. Notice we're not given any of the acute angles. We're given the right angle, of course. These are all right triangles, but now we're trying to find the measure of the angle of the acute angle inside the triangle. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to use SOH CAH TOA to help us find it, okay? So notice here, in this first one here, we have the angle up here, I. I is the angle that we're trying to solve for, okay? And there's a little x there, a little variable. So since that's the angle I'm going to work with, notice there's nothing here. I'm not trying to find this angle, although I can once I find the measure of that one, or I could just find that one right away. But since this is the only one I'm interested in, then I'm going to go ahead and label my sides accordingly to this angle. So notice here, if this is the angle I'm interested in, then this means this is the adjacent, this is the opposite, and this is the hypotenuse. Okay? So based on that, I'm going to use the ratio that uses opposite and hypotenuse because I don't have any information here, so I'm going to use these two sides, okay? Notice the OH, we write SOH CAH TOA. OH is the first one here, sine, so we're going to use sine. So we're going to do sine, and then we're going to use a special key on the calculator, guys. Okay, now if you look above my calculator here, I have three keys, sine, cosine, and tangent, and then above it I have inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tan. It's like tan, sine, cosine, all these, but with a -1 exponent. So basically what we're doing is we're going backwards here. So we're going to do inverse sine of, and then we're going to go ahead and put opposite over hypotenuse inside this parentheses here. Okay, so we're going to do 4.8 and then 6.7. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to give us the angle measure. Watch this. So I'm going to do sine inverse. So I have to hit the second key, sine. Your calculator may be a little different, but it should have this key here. And I'm going to use parentheses. I'm going to put 4.8 divided by 6.7. I'm going to close the parentheses, and I'm going to hit equals. Okay, I get 45.75. So 45.75, if I round it up to the nearest tenth, it would be 45.8 because the 5 next to it is bigger than 5, or 5 or bigger, I mean. And so this would be an 8. Now, if I want to round up to the nearest degree, it would be about 46 degrees. Okay, so all these are appropriate answers. On Delta Math, it's going to either ask you to the nearest tenth or to the nearest degree. So it'll be one of these two, okay? All right, next one. So again, we want to start off by identifying the angle that they want us to find. So in this case, they want us to find angle V. That's why the variable is there, X, okay? So this is the angle named V. So that means we're going to use these two sides, right? But let's go ahead and label it. So if this is the angle we're interested in, that means this is the adjacent, and this is the opposite, and this is the hypotenuse. And so here we're using the ones that have adjacent and opposite only. So let's write again, SOH CAH TOA. And notice here, TOA is opposite and adjacent, so we're going to use TOA. Again, we're going to use the inverse key for all these problems. When we're trying to find the angles using two sides, we're going to use the inverse key. And so opposite over adjacent, that would be 15 over 81. Okay, so take your calculator, and we're going to do inverse tan, and then parentheses, 15 divided by 81, close the parentheses, and I get 10.49. So 10.49, but remember, Delta Math may ask you to round to the nearest tenth. So that would be 10.5, or if it asks you to round to the nearest degree, it would be 11 degrees. Okay, so either of these two would be appropriate depending on what they ask you. Two more to go. These are kind of easy, right? So notice here, our angle is down here again. So that means this is the adjacent, this is the opposite, and this is the hypotenuse. Okay. So notice we are only going to be using these two sides here. So that's the opposite and hypotenuse. So let's write SOH CAH TOA. Okay. So SOH CAH TOA. So opposite and hypotenuse, I'm going to use sine, okay? So inverse sine. And then I'm going to write opposite over hypotenuse inside the parentheses here. Opposite is 6.4, hypotenuse is 8.8. Okay, and then just let the calculator do the rest. So we're going to do inverse sine, parentheses, 6.4 divided by 8.8. And I get 46.65. In fact, since the 8 is there after the 5, I'm going to say 46.66. So 46.66, right? And then that would make this 46.7 if I round to the nearest tenth, or it would make it 47 degrees if I round to the nearest degree, okay? All right. And the last one here. Again, they want this angle up here. Notice there's where the x is. And so we have, this is the adjacent, opposite, and the hypotenuse. Notice how the first thing to do is label the size of the triangle, okay? Corresponding to the angle that we're focusing on. And so here we have adjacent and hypotenuse that we're going to use. So this is going to be, let's write it, SOH CAH TOA. Adjacent and hypotenuse, that's cosine. Okay, so we're going to do cosine inverse of adjacent over hypotenuse, 71 over 94. Okay, so inverse cosine of 71 divided by 94. And we get 40.95. Because the 6 makes the 4 into a 5. And so if I round this up, this would be 40. Well, take a look here. If this rounds up to the nearest tenth, right, then the 5 is going to make that into a 10, which makes this into 41.0. Okay, that would be to the nearest tenth, and to the nearest degree would be just 41 degrees. Okay, that's it, guys.